Okay.
Okay. Well, it's 12 o'clock. I don't want to hold you back, but I guess we can get started with an introduction.
Sure, sure.
So Aldo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, actually, I have a little bit of that in the presentation, so we can start with the talking about the Discord group you have. Or
Yeah, so most of the members here, they're already members of our
great.
Discord group. So I don't see any new names pop up here. But either way, we do design sprints on our Discord server about once every month, and they last for about 2 weeks. So we work on different challenges and different prompts to kind of help develop our design thinking skills. So that's kind of like what we're about in this community. So we're all about self-improvement, just ongoing learning and learning by actually doing some of these exercises. We're almost up to like 500 members, so we're growing pretty big. We're hoping to become a Discord partner. Yeah, we're just doing events like this kind of in the same enthusiasm of self-development and self-improvement. So yeah, a lot of our members here are interested in getting jobs in UX. So they either have transitioned or they're starting to learn UX design. And yeah, that's why I kind of invited you here, because you have experience and we can all learn from you and your wisdom.
Well, I hope I can be of help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start the presentation and talk a little bit. First of all, I want to say thanks to Melanie. And when she told me about this project, I thought it was very interesting. She told me especially that a lot of you are transitioning from either from graphic design and even from other things into UX UI. And that's my case. My major is in graphic design, and then I transition into UX and UI. So I find it super interesting, and I'm pretty sure I can help with a few things. So I hope this will be very useful for all of you. In the end, we're going to have a question and answer session, so you can ask me or Melanie. Okay, so let's start. First of all, welcome to everyone. I want to say before starting a few things. First, I have a small puppy roaming around, so maybe you will hear something. Puppy, never mind about her. And I have a second monitor, so I will be checking from time to time. So just in case it will be weird, maybe. Okay. Okay, so let's start presenting. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is how to present a case study. And why is this important? We're going to start to say what's a case study overall and why it's important to have this in your portfolio when you are going to job interviews. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about me to present myself. I'm a UX UI designer at Phloc. Phloc is a small startup in Tel Aviv, in Israel, is where I live. As I said before, I had a bachelor degree in graphic design, and I also have a master's degree in visual communications. Basically, Phloc is a marketplace for photography experiences in Europe. We have tours, night workshops, also we have webinars about photography, these kind of things. And I've been working there for already 2 years. In my experience, I already have 11 years in total. I started, as I said, as a graphic designer. I have 4 years experience. Previously, I was an art director for a business company. And now, well, I have 2 years doing UX UI for this startup in Tel Aviv. I put there my Facebook, my LinkedIn, and my GitHub. If you would like to connect, I would be very happy also to answer questions or just to chat sometime about UX, UI. I know also a little bit of things of coding, so I will be happy to share and connect if you want. Okay, first of all, what I wanted to start is about case study is usually in the portfolio of people that are transitioning or that are going into this. They focus into design. They focus into presenting animations and presenting um, beautiful pieces of graphic interfaces. And I'm not saying that's not okay, but what I'm saying is many times these are out of context. I took, for example, now what I'm going to show is a few examples on Dribble. I think it's very well known. For example, this. I think I have also a few. What I see as a professional in this is that these pieces lack of context. Or sometimes, like this one, this for me is the perfect example that we want to present something that is in trend, or we want to present something that looks nice, or we want to present something that is our favorite. For example, we want to present a redesign on Netflix, or we want to make a redesign on Spotify and these kind of things. But many times these pieces are not really grounded into reality, are not really solving day-to-day business problems. So let's talk about this. First of all, what's a case study? A case study is this, taking something that you think is a problem and looking a solution for it before even getting into anything of design. And why is this important to have in your portfolio? Because this will help people doing interviews, people hiring. This will show very clearly your way of thinking. This will show very clearly the process you did to solve these problems and the methodologies you are using. Of course, they want to know if you know how to use Sketch or if you know how to use Figma. But this is like the last part of uh, this job in real day to day. Okay, for example, what I was going to say is the CEO is never going to say, hey, listen, our design, our platform, our app, our digital product is not on trend or is not beautiful enough. They don't care about these things, for example. What they care is about that you are able to solve maybe small but crucial problems. I'm going to show you an example about Phloc, the startup I work for, because I know them very well, so I can talk about them. And for example, this is our app. It's one of the tours we had. In the first one, you can see for the booking was like a set of steps. So after this, using Hotjar, we found out that people was having trouble with this, having all this information upfront. And we were asking from them also in which time zone they were. So the problem is all this information was confusing for them. At this point, the CEO wanted to be very clear about the information needed because yeah, for the booking, we need things like which city are you, which is your time zone, for example, for the online webinars we have. But presenting all this information upfront was confusing and people was getting lost and they were getting out of this app. And what we did is we make a whole case study to get to the next screen with a simple, clear button. Of course, there are information that is still important, but was divided in a better user flow than just put everything up front. And this may seem like obvious understanding of how to do it, but when you are in the process, there are many things you need to try first before going to what you think is the most obvious solution of all. That's how a case study works, and that's how it's important to know how to make one from scratch to design and then applying and testing. So something that is keystone in a case study is the storytelling. I found here a quote by someone in UX Foundation. I recommend very much that you check out their blog. They have a bunch of interesting information. And it says a good case study is the story how
Pues sí,
you
antes
broke
de
a
lo,
design
y
challenge.
bueno, la verdad es que también ya literal nada más es de dibujar, o sea, igual y que tú estuvieras ahí como...
Okay. Okay. So talking about storytelling, how are you going to base your storytelling? If you Google storytelling for UX case studies, you will find a lot of information out there. But for me, I'm basing on a book that is very popular for UX design and in general for project management, and it's Start with Why by Simon Sinek. Maybe some of you heard already about him, maybe some of you already know about this book. And basically what he said is not exactly, he didn't say it's storytelling per se, but it's the same idea. It's how you break up the solution of a problem. And it's basically with three questions: why, how, and what. Why is why are you doing the things you are doing? Let's take again the dribble example. Why these people is posting a redesign of Spotify or Netflix? Because they like it, because they want to show off their skills in design in Figma or in Sketch or something like this, or is because they are looking for a real problem, a day-to-day problem they want to solve. What is the purpose of the solution you are going to make? How is more involved about the tools you are using. For example, this is where all the UX research parts come in. And what is finally what you are delivering? What are you delivering? A solution for a problem you realize was there and was needed to be solved. Okay, so we are going to watch until the end of this presentation how to develop these 3 steps that I think they are very simple and are very clear to explain how a case study works. So again, as Simon says, always start with why. It's a problem statement. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? What is the motivation? What are your thoughts and feelings about the problem? Let's say you take a regular app you use day to day and there's a interaction problem you see, or something I recommend for this, for example, you can go to the App Store in your iPhone or your Android and see apps that are low rated and see why. And many times you will find there user experience problems. And then this problem, you need to be able to simplify it and to explain it clearly. Albert Einstein used to say, if you cannot explain something to a 6-year-old, then that means you also don't understand it. So the first thing of the problem statement is be very clear and very simple and be able to tell why is this a problem to a 6-year-old. Should be very short phrases, very concrete, very simple, but you will be very clear also in the context of why it's happening and why. How that comes? With user research that supports your theory. There are tons of things here that come into play. There are interviews, there are surveys, there are trusted sources. Regardless what you will use, it's important to write down what you are using. Why? Because when you are in an interview, you will need to say, okay, I use this methodology because of this. I thought this was the best one because of this and this. Your arguments needs to be very, very solid. And your data output should be presented in clear infographics. I mean, you are going to gather a lot of data. You are going to have a lot of sources. You're going to have interviews, and you're going to have user personas, and you're going to have surveys, and you're going to have Hotjar recordings, and you're going to have this and this and this and this. But when you present all this information, should be very, very clear to whoever is seeing it. Well, I'm going to show an example of, again, with Phloc about user pains. For this, we made a bunch of surveys and we did also a bunch of interviews for our users who are photographers. And the basic idea was what was stopping them for getting this moment of photography that we call photography immersive. What was stopping them when they start taking pictures? What was stopping them? What was stopping them from enjoy and to get into this state that we wanted them to be? And instead of putting graphs and instead of putting all these surveys like in A, B, C, D, what I did was presented in this way. And if you see these arrows are like messy because the idea is like these are the pains of the user. They are not having fun. This is meant to represent that it's a mess for them, that is a complication for them, and how we can solve this. I'm going to show another example. In this, we were showing what things they considered was important for them, like social presence in Instagram, or self-critique, or equipment investment. All these things is called, in marketing, is called the top of mind. So for example, this was in our surveys, but instead of putting, okay, 80% of them think social presence is a problem and 30% think the hours of practice a problem. These are numbers that is important for the team from the inside. But when you present the information, you don't need to present a bunch of numbers and a bunch of percentage. You need to present it very clear to explain very fast what's going on. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the how. The how is finally your solution. After you do all this research, after you have clear data, after you have all these pains and gains, after you have your user personas, after you have all these parts, then comes the part when you propose a solution. You outline your approach. There are many ways to do this. Let's understand, there's not a single recipe to do this. Of course, if you take a UX course, they will say, yeah, it's important the user personas, or it's important this and this. But let's start by saying, when you are in a day-to-day work, in a job, in a case study, you don't really have time to make all the steps, and you don't really have the time to make everything from scratch. So you need to take things that you think are going to be simpler to present and are going to be more focused in what you want to present. Maybe user personas doesn't work because, for example, in the startup I work for, we had the user personas when we started way back. So we don't need to create a user personas again if we're going to make an iteration of the marketplace, for example, because we already have very clear what are user personas, and these user personas are even developed for this because these user personas are already our clients, and we are not making assumptions. We already know them. We already know which is our most famous product, which is the one that is the least wanted. We know, for example, how much they are willing to pay, how much is too much for them, what kind of products are more popular, for example. So, for example, when I do a case study in the startup I'm working for, I don't need to present this information all over again. I just need to focus in what we are working at the moment. And these will see like I'm skipping some part of the process in a regular or traditional, let's say, a course table of checklist. But because, again, the idea is to make it simple. There's also a very famous book and many ideas out there about UX to make it simple. So a few tools that I use for this, for all this information gathering and to propose solutions, is Miro, that I know you already know. I know also you made your sprints in there. It's very popular. It's great. I love it. I think everyone loves it. Has a lot of useful tools. The other one is Mural. Mural is basically the same as Miro. It's basically the same idea, just with a little difference here and there. I tried both already. Actually, in the startup I'm working for, before deciding for one or the other, we had the free trial for both. And Balsamic. Balsamic is basically to make wireframes, and we use it a lot. I use it a lot to make the user flow through the product. What I'm going to present now is a user journey. Let's start by saying, what's the difference between the user journey and the user flow? This user journey that I put here is not specifically for the product, is for the triggering of the emails when people was going to book one of our experiences. Let's say we had an experience that it was to take photograph of the bridges in Rome at night. And when people book this, we had a series of emails triggering along. When you book, you get an email. 24 hours later, you will get another email, and then so and so and so. This is not specifically UI. There's not a lot of UI involved in here. But a lot of the experience for us in our market is important to hype them, to get this experience of this is coming, this is next week, this is this. And in these emails, we were showing pictures. If you're going to take pictures of the bridges of Rome at night, then you have to open with a beautiful picture of these bridges at night, reflected with the lights in the water and all this, and this will hype them. This was part of the user experience. And for all this, we made this user journey. The user journey, I will describe it that it's a little bit more about the emotions of the user. It's not so technical. That's the user flow. The user flow is more technical about, okay, if they click here, they need to do this, and if they fill in this, they will do this. It's more technical part. But the user journey has more to do with the, how, let's say, the emotional part of the user. Of course, there's a few technical things involved, but I will describe it that it's more into the emotional part of the user experience. And the user flow. This example is of the checkout we did for our experience. And this is, okay, if they see a product, they need to click in here, and then this click will take them to this other page, and then this click will take them to the landing page, and then the landing page will take them to the checkout, and they need to click here, and they need to put the credit card here, and so on, so on, so on, so on. This is the user flow, how the marketplace works. So as you can see in here, I presented these graphs, very clear. And then the user flow I present in Balsamic with these wireframes that are very simple. In here, there are no fancy pictures of bridges of Rome. There are no, it's very, very, very simple, because I wanted to present how the user will interact with our marketplace and what they were going to see every step. It's showing step by step what we want from them, what we expect from them. Because for a user flow, you need to have a goal and all the steps along, so the user will achieve that goal. In this case, the goal was that they book and put the credit card and pay for an experience for us. So to get to this process, we go back and we need to show, since they got in our home, or sometimes even if there's a Facebook campaign, what's the landing page they're getting into, what they are going to see. After that, what we expect from them. And this is how I presented this user flow. And if you see, there's in there a post that says FOMO. FOMO is a marketing strategy that means fear of missing out. What we were doing is, if the experience was, let's say, 50 euro, we were putting a small countdown that was giving a 50% discount. was part of the marketing strategy, and me as the user experience designer, I needed to integrate this. That's why it's this posted is there in big, to always have in mind that the user experience need to show this short window on how it was closing, so the user will get this discount, and how this should be presented in the UI with a countdown, getting changing color. Let's say if it was for 24 hours, then the last 5 hours it was getting the numbers were getting red, for example. These kind of things. It's certain notes that is important for what you want to achieve. Remember, in here it's about, we're talking about a problem that we are going to solve, and we're going to achieve a goal. In this case, this particular case study, what I'm talking about this FOMO strategy, what we were testing is if this will give value to our product, the fact that giving 50% discount, and if it was interesting for the users. And the case study was basically why we're doing this, because we want to try if this FOMO strategy will bring us more bookings. This is the basic idea that we wanted to test. So parting from there, we needed to develop all the things, the user journey and the user flow. Okay, and this is basically how I was presenting. Again, has to be very clear. It's okay if you have your notebook, or in Miro you have a lot of post-its in there, but usually when you present this to the team, to the developers, to the CEO, then it has to be very, very, very clear. And then the what is the solution applied. This is the part where designers have the more fun, because this is when you are actually getting into designing things. These screens that I have here are the marketplace that we have. We have the home, and we have the online experiences and the local experiences, the landing page for each city, because we have Barcelona, we have Rome, so we had to present a series of things as a whole, then the product, how it will look, and other things like general information like the about us, this kind of thing. In here, I presented the screens. For example, I presented the flow, the interaction, as animation. In here, what you see in this picture is more for this presentation, so you can see them all together. But when I presented this for my team, I did a mock-up that was interactive, that you can flow through it like it was a real website. And with the developer team, we even made a fake data of a credit card, so you can also do this email part. So when you went into a product, they were able to input the data like they were making a purchase and receiving the email, but the confirmation of the booking. So as you see, all this process was to achieve the goal that we wanted users to make a booking, and what was the experience they're going to go through when we designed all this. Okay, so as a conclusion, why you must have case studies in your portfolio, because this will show very clear to people hiring, or when you go into an interview, your way of thinking, your way of solving problems. It's not just about having beautiful designs and nice interactions and that you are very proficient in Sketch or Figma or your favorite software. It's about the whole process of how you take a problem and look for solutions, and how you achieve to solve things. Many times in a day-to-day job, you don't do things that are super animations or super designs. There are even sometimes simpler things. Like, okay, we have like the example I showed before. We have this questionnaire with a few questions, and the solution was as simple as putting this button and then getting other information in another way. For example, in these emails. Or for example, after the book now, they will need to fill in the credit card information. So we don't need to ask them in which country they are in the general UI of the product when they are making the booking. We ask later, or with the where they're filling in the information of the credit card. There are ways to know, for example, or confirming with the email, these kind of things. And finally, what I was going to say, sorry. Yeah, that the end of the product is not always the most important thing people who is hiring wants to see. They are more interested in how you solve the problem. Because there are many talented designers out there, but what they're really looking for is for someone who can make this bond with the developing team that is not always easy, that are always talking on the same level, and that have a very, very clear understanding of the needs of the company. It will be a startup or a fintech top 5 company of the world, or it can be this top of the world like Google, Facebook. They are always looking for people who know how to solve problems. So basically, you need to present a document with your case study with all these things I showed before, starting from how you present your data about your research. Of course, a few lines of how you are presenting your problem statement in a very clear context. And things like this, like your user journey and your user flow, and then the final product. Okay, so we are open for questions, shares, comments. Everything is welcome.
I think someone asked a question in the chat. So it says, besides Bellasmeek, what were the other 2 programs you used? And thank you for an insightful presentation.
Programs I use for specifically what? Because along the way I use the different things. I see what's in the chat. Okay, let me see. Besides Balsamic, the other programs was for the user flow. I was for the user journey. I was using Miro, and the other recommendation was I'm going to write in the chat. And the other is very similar, is Mural. They are both kind of the same thing. They have small difference, but they pretty much work the same. For designing, well, I'm pretty sure you are familiar with this, but I was using Sketch and Figma. Okay, any other questions?
Don't be shy, guys. Any question will do.
I guess I have a question. How can you make sure you can keep your presentation under a time limit? For example, if they only allow you to have 5 minutes to present the entire case studies, what is your tips on making sure everything will be concise and shared within such a short period of time?
That's a very good question. You should start with why again. If you have a very, very clear statement, then you will say, okay, why I'm doing this? Because I found out this problem. I went through all this process that I'm not going to go into details, but basically, this is how I think this problem can be solved. It starts with why again. It's about the problem statement, because many times they will want to see if you understood what the problem was in the first place, more than what was your solution.
Thank you for that. I know some other people might have any other questions that want to ask. If not, I have maybe one more. So I actually came across an interesting topic of people who sometimes have worked on projects that has NDA agreements. So how can they explain their case studies or work process involved with something that's already with an NDA agreement signed? How can they make it, I guess, like, what is the best way for them to present a case study that has an NDA signed? That's the question.
Yeah, well, in this part depends. It's more, I think, in a personal level. Many times you can get, let's say, like a letter of agreement of certain things you can show that maybe if it doesn't has the logo of the company, or if it doesn't have key information, let's say, for example, in this, what I show for the startup I'm working for, I told him about I was going to show it and for what purposes. And as you see, there are no logos. I didn't present any key information. I didn't need like a signed letter about this, but there was like a word agreement about what can I show and what is off the table.
Awesome, thank you.
I think there's another question in the chats from Daria.
Mm-hmm.
It says, do you include screenshots of all the research methods that you use in the case studies, or sum up some of the findings through text and infographics?
You sum up because you want to keep things simple. It depends also to who you are presenting. Let's say if you are presenting to the project manager, or if you are presenting to the head of the UX UI team, then it's important to show all the process and where you are coming from, because it's more an insider look. If you are presenting to the CEO, or if you are presenting to all the team in general, so they all know in what problem all the team needs to work. For example, if they are testing a new business model, then all the team needs to know what's about and what's the solution that we are presenting. But in this case, it's better to sum it up and to be very clear, because you don't want to get people that is not, let's say, someone that is doing marketing doesn't want to know about how to make a user persona, or doesn't want to know about, I don't know, specific technical things that they are not interested in. They just want to know what's the problem and what's the solution and what's their part into this solution.
Okay, there's another question from Yozaki. It says, this is off topic, but what challenges did you face during and after your career transition?
Well, the part of UX research was one of the challenges, because I'm a graphic designer, and let's be honest, Figma or Sketch or InVision are not so different, or the tools are not that far from what we already have in Photoshop or Illustrator that I was very, very used to. But things like, okay, now you have to talk to 5 complete strangers and ask questions about what they think of the product, besides I like it or I don't like it, to get deeper information from them, for example. These skills need practice, and when you are doing this transition, you are not used to it, unless you come from a background like you are, I don't know, a lawyer or a psychologist or something like that. But if you are a graphic designer, or if you are coming from something completely unrelated, these skills will need practice. I think this is one of the major challenges. And other of the challenges I faced, and I will recommend you a lot to understand a little bit of code, because day to day you will have to talk on the same level with developers, and us as designers, we always don't talk the same language. So it's difficult to get an understanding if you have no idea of the language they are talking about, and they don't have any idea of the language you're talking about. Because you can be talking about a certain color, and the way they see color is entirely different of how a designer can see it, for example. Or interactions, mostly. For example, one time I had a big disagreement with the developers because I designed in a very nice parallax, But it turned out it was not very doable for developing, was not going to work the way I thought about it. This was one of my early disagreements I had with developers when I was not very familiar with this, for example. So this is my recommendation. You don't need to become developers, but you need to understand the language they talk.
Very true. I also have a question.
Yes.
For someone starting out creating a portfolio, how many case studies should they start with before reaching out to employers?
I don't think there's like a magic number. I cannot say 3. I cannot say 5. I cannot say something that specific. I think if your portfolio is really old school projects, or you don't have anything that can be, let's say, in a professional environment, then you can have maybe just 1 or 2, but that you feel pretty confident about it, that you are able to explain it very well. Doesn't matter if it's the website of your local pizza place, as long as you are able to understand all the parts and explain very clearly how from your statement you go into your solution. Because you can have 10 or 30 case studies, but you are not going to be specialized in these 10 or 30. So I think it's whatever you feel really, really confident with.
And do we have any more questions? No?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Although I learned from a UX designer that is not recommended to have in my portfolio some kind of mock-ups from, I don't know, maybe an iPhone, and to have this interface, because of the interface is looking not so important. So I don't know, what do you recommend from this recommendation with another designer?
Yeah, that's a very common mistake, that you wanted your interface to look nice. So many people present it already like in a phone or in a laptop or things like this. But the thing about this is you are cropping a lot of important information, because when you work into a real project, you don't develop one screen that is going to fit in this rectangle. You develop a set of screens that maybe you need like to scroll down. So this looks nice for Dribble or for sharing on Instagram or things like this. But if you want to talk about how you come from, again, from the why, from the problem statement into a solution, then just showing this part of the solution doesn't really work. It works better if you have something more complete to show all the information. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend that in a professional environment. For showing off on social media, it's great, but not very professional.
Thanks a lot.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess that's it
Okay.
for questions. If anyone has any questions that surface to mind after this presentation is over, I encourage you to get connected with Aldo. He's on our Discord server, and he also has Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think you have the links on one of your slides, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can follow him there, and you can have a chat with him and ask more questions if you didn't think of any right now.
Yeah, and I will be trying to interact more into Discord also.
Mhm.
To be honest, I'm not very familiar with this platform. Well, I need to get more into
Yeah.
it, and I will be glad to share more about this. Not only about case studies, but about my experience in general.
Okay. I don't know how many of you are not members of the collective studio. I see maybe 1 or 2 people that I don't really recognize the names of, But if you're interested in learning more about our Discord server, I could just drop a link into the chats. You
Yeah,
can check
sure.
it out. We do a lot of design thinking sprints every month. We focus on different challenges that we feel are pretty important. And yeah, it's free to join in. There's no obligation to stick around. You could just stay, learn as much as you can. Everyone here is quite friendly. We help each other out. And yeah, it's just a great place if you're getting started as a UX designer. Just network with people and learn as much as you can. Sounds good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Melanie, for the invitation. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And someone asked about connecting on LinkedIn. Feel free to do it. And if not, we'll talk in Discord. There's the link.
All righty. Thank you.
Thanks
All right.
again.
See you guys later.